Welcome back to Storytime. In today's episode, we're going to be continuing our reading of Machines and Men, but before we jump into it, just a quick reminder. If you would like to submit a story for Storytime, you can do so on our Reddit at r/CreantWorld using the Flare Storytime. Also, just as a quick reminder, of Machines and Men is a story for adults and may not be appropriate for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. And now, Chapter 17. The Cast of Characters. Stephen took a deep, steadying breath, then another, and then a third. Promises were important to keep, especially the ones that you make for yourself, and Stephen Waters was about to break one right now. He had sworn to himself that he was never going to talk to her again, that if he ever saw her, it would be with scorn. Yet still, 5 months after their breakup, here he was, sitting in his car, waiting for Becky to get off work. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy to see Becky again. He wasn't happy that she was the person who had the information he needed. He simply wasn't happy about the situation at all. However, his life was crazy. Everything had gone to hell, and she was the only person who could help him. After all, they had been friends, close friends, once. Stephen just hoped he wasn't making a mistake. Becky and her coworkers emptied out of the mall laughing and talking. She took no notice of Stephen's car parked next to hers. She was on the point of getting into her car when he hailed her. "Long time no see, Becky." She jumped and shrieked and whirled to face him, her hand scrambling for the can of pepper spray in her purse. When she saw it was Stephen, recognition clicked in, quickly followed by anger. "The fuck do you want?" She growled testily. "I need to talk to you," Stephen said with equal testiness. "As I recall, you told me to fuck off, remember?" "Vividly. But I still need your advice on something. Can we talk or not?" Becky made a big show of checking her watch. "I'm meeting with Jeff in 20 minutes. You can come with me to do the deposit, but other than that, no." Stephen felt his fist clench on the wheel at the mention of his rival, but told himself to calm down. He had come knowing this was going to be unpleasant. Best to just grit his teeth and bear it. He levered himself out of his car and got into hers, slamming the door. He wasn't surprised when Becky lit up a cigarette, though he was still disappointed. She really had been doing so well. "So?" Becky asked as they pulled out of the lot. Stephen briefly told her the situation. To her credit, she listened to the whole story without interrupting. When he was finished, she blew out a sigh. "So basically, you want to know how to break up with Vera, was it? And you don't want to hurt her, but she's just not right for you. Am I getting that right?" she asked, sliding Stephen a glance. He nodded. "And you've come to talk to me about this because I broke up with you for the same reasons?" she continued. Another nod. "Well, I hate to break it to you, doll, but I'm not exactly a model for breakups either. You went literally ballistic when I broke up with you." "No," Stephen said through gritted teeth. "I went ballistic when you had another guy in your bed in less than a week after we broke up." "First of all, it is none of your damn business who I sleep with. And secondly, I was a free agent when I got together with Jeff. It's not like I was cheating on you when we were together. I was always honest with you. And of all the people in this car, it sounds like the only cheater here is you." There was a pause while both of them glared at each other. Stephen broke the tension by blowing out a sigh and looking out the window. "I deserve that," he said in a weary voice. "I know I didn't have any claim on you, and I shouldn't have been upset. I was just jealous, you know?" "No shit. It's not a good look for you," Becky scoffed, though when she saw Stephen's face, she softened. "Steve, for what it's worth, you never gave me any cause to be angry with you. You were the most attentive and kindest man I've ever met, and I mean that. You just weren't right for me, that's all." "Yeah, I'm beginning to understand that feeling," Stephen said heavily. "Farah is perfect. She's never done anything wrong, but that's basically the problem. She's too good." "Well, my only advice to you is to be honest with her. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck, but at least you'll know the truth," Becky said with a helpless shrug. "I think it's all you can do." "Yeah," Stephen agreed in a hollow voice. When Becky had deposited the money the company had made for the day, they drove back to the mall in silence. When they got back, Stephen moved to get out of the car, but Becky caught his arm. "Listen, Steve, I'm sorry I hurt you. Posting a picture with Jeff like that was a bit tactless on my part, so I'm sorry about that." "It's okay," Stephen said, and was surprised when he found he meant it. "I'm sorry I lost my shit. I shouldn't have." "So we all good?" Becky asked hesitantly. Things would never go back to the way they had been between the two, but at least he didn't hate Becky anymore. Stephen's predicament seemed to bridge the gap that had formed between them somewhat. It was true that Stephen didn't feel that they could ever reclaim the friendship that they had shared before the breakup, but he did feel a sense of closure. The hurt feelings and bruised egos were gone, and he had found that he could finally let go of his anger. Becky was not going to be a part of his life anymore, but at least now he could let her go. "Yeah, we're good," he said with a half smile. "Thanks, hon." Becky leaned over in the seat and gave Stephen a hug before he got out and she drove off. He watched her go with a sense of wistfulness, but also a feeling of closure. This had helped him, he decided, even if it hadn't answered his questions so much. Stephen knew what he had to do, but he wasn't happy about it. Driving home, a sudden thought occurred to him, and he diverted course. He was going to talk to Vera, to be honest with her, but there was something he had to do first. Andy sat working at his computer. He rubbed his eyes tiredly and yawned. The clock on his desk told him that he had been writing for 16 hours. He wasn't sure how much more he had still to go, but he suspected it would be an all-nighter to get this piece done by the deadline. He was writing an article for a magazine involving a new book that was coming out, but his editor had only given him this project this morning and wanted him to have the article ready for the next day. And he hated when people did stuff like that. Editors never seemed to realize that writing a witty, well-thought-out article took time. He couldn't have just waved a magic wand and make the writing come out, although he wished he could. Tiredly, he rubbed his eyes and tried to focus. He became distracted a moment later when he felt a warm hand on his shoulder and a soft voice spoke in his ear. "You've been working for a really long time. Would you like me to get you anything?" "No, thanks, Vera," Andy said, turning to the robot with a smile before thinking better of it. "Actually, yes. Would you mind making some coffee for me? I'm pretty sure I'm going to be at this for a while." "Sure," Vera replied warmly, and then moved out of the room towards the kitchen. Andy watched her go. He had gotten used to Vera being around quite quickly. She was very helpful, and he was glad of the assistance. Vera was currently dressed in a t-shirt and sky blue sleep pants, and had her hair tied up in a ponytail. It was a comfortable outfit, and Andy, for his part, thought it was charming. He always enjoyed seeing girls at rest. Oh, sure, they were gorgeous when they were all dressed up, but when they were bumming around in sweats, that was when women showed you who they really were. Vera's attitude had improved a bit, though she still seemed lonely and taciturn. She never let on about it around him, but he knew when she was alone, she would sit looking out of the window for hours like a dog waiting for its master to come back. It was pretty obvious that even though she tried not to let it show, that Vera was still missing Stephen a lot. On the occasions when he had come by to visit or to drop off some of her clothes, she had immediately brightened. She would follow him around like a lost puppy, eager to do anything to please him, hoping for some interaction with him. Stephen, for his part, always seemed distant and tried to be as quick as possible with his visits. Andy felt a bit sorry for Vera. She couldn't fight her programming. Stephen was the person she had been imprinted on, and he was the only person who really mattered to her. She loved him, or at least as much as a robot can love anything. In either case, it hurt Andy's heart to see Vera so hung up over Stephen that nothing else seemed to give her joy. Oh, she was nice enough to Andy, stroked and cared for Apollo, but it was clear that they were secondary in her mind. Stephen was the person she wanted to be with most, and Stephen was the very person she couldn't be with. Vera might not be able to feel depression or sadness that Stephen wasn't around, but it was clear that she was distressed nonetheless. For his own part, Andy had begun to admire Vera's loyalty. If he had a girl like that, he certainly wouldn't complain about it. Of course, Vera was gorgeous as well, and Andy couldn't help feeling that she would be very fun to cuddle up with. Vera had slept, if you could call it that, in an armchair in the living room every night. She was always very polite, kind, and generous and thoughtful, but her actions made it very clear she was not interested in any romantic entanglement with Andy. Her heart belonged to Stephen. Even so, it was nice having her around. Vera was like a roommate, and perversely, Andy found that he was okay with that. In the past, Andy had shunned roommates. He had gone out of his way to make sure that he never had to share a room with anyone, so it surprised him that he didn't mind living with Vera. She really was more like a human pet than anything else. Vera returned a few moments later with a cup of steaming hot coffee, which she set down on the desk next to Andy. He thanked her, and she was just on the point of leaving when he asked, "Hey, Vera, can you type?" "Yeah, I can type," Vera replied, cocking her head to the side. "Why?" "I was wondering if you could type while I dictate. I've been at this for a while, and I'm on my third iteration of this. It would go a lot faster with your help." Vera smiled indulgently and pulled up a chair next to the desk, her fingers poised over the keyboard. She looked over at Andy expectantly. Stephen paced back and forth on the doorstep, wondering exactly what he was going to say. Things had just been so awkward lately. Maybe she wouldn't even see him. He wouldn't blame her if she slammed the door in his face, but he felt in his heart that it was important to try and talk to her anyway. Hesitantly, he knocked on the door and waited as he heard sounds of movement inside. Meg opened the door and looked surprised to see him standing there. "Hi, Meg. Can we talk?" he asked. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And for more episodes like this, feel free to subscribe to this channel because we bring out more story times once a week. Until next time, I will see you later.